Hello and welcome to episode 164 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is someone that I've been trying to get on Mark and Me for around 4 years. He's the frontman of one of my favourite bands growing up and has definitely shaped the types of bands that I listen to today. I'm joined by the absolutely incredible Art Alexakis from Everclear. I'm so thrilled about this interview, and I'm going to say it right now. It's a two-parter. We sat down and recorded this interview a few months ago during lockdown, but as always, time runs out, you're restricted, and I don't feel we really got the full extent of the interview. So Art was so kind to come back on, and we've got a second part which is also out today. And it's been a good few years since I've done a good two-parter, so you guys out there, it's been a long time coming, but I tell you now, it's worth the wait. Now let's just touch base and talk about the last episode. On episode 163, I had two guests, Han and Jim from the amazing band Hot Milk. The response was amazing, this band are amazing, and I couldn't be more grateful for everyone that's tuned in and then gone and checked out this amazing band. They're going to be absolutely massive, and I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's listened. The response was amazing and I really appreciate it. But hey, let's get back to today's episode. Art Alexakis from Everclear. Almost all my friends had so much for the Afterglow and the album Sparkle and Fade. There's hit after hit, and the man's a genius, and the interviews will not let you down. So here's me and Art talking all things Everclear. So Art, thank you for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
What I want to do today for anyone that's listening and tuning in for the first time, that's discovering Everclear, or hopefully will listen to this and then go and download and listen to all your albums. Where did it start for you? So, you know, when you were growing up and you were young, what were those first ever albums that you listened to that made you go, fucking hell, I want to play guitar and sing for the rest of my life?
Well, it wasn't actually an album, but there were albums. So when I was 3.5, 4, it was 65 or 66, the last time the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. Not the first or second time, the third time. And I was in my bedroom. You know, Mom would put me to bed and then go out to the living room and have a couple of drinks with my dad, you know, and watch TV. And I would just sit at the door with the light on and kind of watch what they were watching. And then I would, like, when I heard music, I like snuck in and I was behind the couch looking around, and they were right here. I was sneaky even. I was a liar even then. I was hiding behind the couch and looking around the couch, and I saw the Beatles playing, and something inside me, I remember this, and I'm 59. I remember this from 55 years ago. Just something inside of me was like, it was almost like that first orgasm you have where it just comes up out of you, or like doing cocaine, or you know, watching my daughter graduate, or you know, just these moments of joy in my life. This was like the first one that just welled up inside me, and I ran around the couch, totally got busted, just right up to the TV, the big old, you know, TV console, and just was glued. And I remember my mom saying to my dad, just leave him alone. Let him do it. Because like 2 years earlier, we had been driving up the coast in California, going camping with the whole family in the car. And this is way before car seats or airbags or anything, you know. The fact that I'm still alive is just amazing. And I'm in the middle on the front bench. My mom's here, I'm here, my dad's driving, right? And this song called it's a surf song with a Wipeout. It's called Wipeout. Nice. Famous song, you've heard it. And it's like this drum roll through the whole thing. And that's on the radio, and I just start jumping up and down. And my dad's like, my dad can't drive, so he changes the channel, and I start hitting him. I don't remember that. I'm told this. I start hitting him and screaming, and he put it back on and turned it up, and he just pulled over to the side of the car, the side of the road. And I just danced and danced till it was over. and then I lay down in my mom's lap, and it was like post-coital or something.
That's incredible.
So my mom learned then that just when it comes to music, just get the hell out of my way. Just get out of my way.
I mean, it's pretty much perfect foundations, isn't it? The Beatles, you don't get much better than sort of John Lennon and Paul McCartney as songwriters. It's like that is the ultimate starting point.
Rock and roll songwriting, which is just as valid, but they made it valid because up until then it was still like the Brill building type, Tin Pan Alley type, like, give me a C, a bouncy C. Okay, well the kids want rock and roll, so let's do EAB, and it seriously, I mean, that's kind of what it was, and until the Beatles actually took all these different types of music and popular music that they had access to, American blues and R&B, and then like English show tunes and stuff like that. You can hear that in Paul's writing for sure, and it's just amazing how it morphed into this. And then these other bands, Stones, Kinks, all the bands from the Mersey Beat and all that stuff just kind of followed them over, and then the American bands picked up on it, and then it went back and forth, and it's just amazing. And I love it. I love being a part of that history. I don't know how big a part of it. I don't think we'll ever be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't care. I just know that I'm a part of it somewhere, just a little bit.
It's incredible, man. It's a good way to look at it. And I reckon you will be. One day, you wait, you'll see, and we'll quote on this podcast. This was the podcast when I said you will go to the Hall of Fame, and it'll be that moment.
I'll be dead. I'll probably be dead. I'm not living that long.
So what about live music, man? Because live music's the first time that you got those little hairs on my sort of neck sticking up, and that's the moment that I was like, I need to do this in my life. And what was it for you? Can you remember those first gigs where it was like, okay, I know you're listening to the
seeing
Beatles
live music,
stuff, but yeah, what was those first gigs you went to that were like, fuck, this is a whole nother level?
Well, my brother took me to Venice Beach, which is near Santa Monica, where I grew up. When I was 4, apparently. And I remember there's still this little old antiquated band shell there, right? And there was a free concert by a LA band, and he told my mom it was like educational because the band was from UCLA. So, but it was the Doors, and
fucking hell.
And it was like, I just remember Morrison scaring the shit out of me because he was like growling and jumping around, and and I'm sitting up kind of up front with my brother, and I'm just like, wow, just the power of it. But he kind of freaked me out. But then all that happened when I was 4, and then it's like I was AM radio. I just constantly listened to AM radio everywhere, in the house, in the cars, like, we had a transistor. My brothers and sisters had transistors everywhere, so we're constantly listening to, this famous radio station called 93 KHJ, which was AM radio in LA. And I think the first album I ever asked for, my mom bought me, was the Animals' Greatest Hits, which had House of the Rising Sun on it and a bunch of other songs. And then the next album I got was Sgt. Pepper's, which there was at the grocery store. They had albums at the grocery store, like at the front, right? Next to the thing where they keep the little balls up in the cage. You get
that's incredible.
Yeah, I got my mom to get me an album. I think it was $1.39 or $2.39, something like that. And then the next one I got was Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? So I got those by the time I was 5 years old. So it starts to make a lot of sense, doesn't it, by now?
It's insane. Everyone I have on, all the bands, we're 150 episodes in, and everyone's always like, well, it was about 15, 16, I was doing a paper round, or I was getting some pocket money, and I bought this Nirvana CD or a Guns N' Roses. And you're like at 5, seeing the Doors, having Jimi Hendrix, having the Beatles. It doesn't get much better than that.
The Animals,
It's incredible.
They were just fucking awesome. And Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, and I just like, and Motown. I love Motown. As a kid growing up, I used to, supposedly when I was like 3 or 4, I used to, my eldest sister's friends would come over there, teenagers, 14, 15, something like that. And I would do the James Brown thing, like with one of her, what do you call it? Like hair rollers, like
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. As a
little
microphone.
plastic hair roller,
Nice.
and use it as a microphone and do the please, please me thing where please, please, where they put the towel on him and
So good.
he throws it off and he comes back. Cause I remember seeing it on TV because my oldest sister actually went to the Tammy show. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a famous show,
Right.
Tamla Motown, and like, man, Marvin Gaye, Smokey,
Jesus.
Rolling Stones, Little Richard, all these bands played at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium in, I think it was 1965, 64. So I don't remember that, but my sister
No.
remember that. And that's kind of legendary, super legendary. Even the Police bands quote the Tammy Show all the time in song lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, man, it goes deep in me. I never really wanted to do anything else. I used to be glued as a kid at every age, just glued to the radio. Then I guess my next live thing was I got my aunt to take me to see Chuck Berry when I was
Wow.
10 because he was playing in Bakersfield. And I was just, and that, there was this weird period, and a lot of kids go through this at that age, 10, 11, 12, like oldies, right? Like 50s and
Yeah.
60s. And I really got into it. And then later that summer, I was up in Northern California with my aunt and my uncle. Oh no, it wasn't that year, it was the next year. And I really got into this band called Montrose, Ronnie Montrose. And I started really getting into like Bad Company, Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath. And for about
Nice.
5 or 6 years, I had this thing of on my birthday, I would get some money, right? Because
Yeah.
we were poor. We lived in a housing project, so I didn't have a lot of money. And when I worked, I was working with paper routes,
Yeah.
paper, newspaper subscriptions, and all this stuff when I was younger. But that was mainly to buy clothes for school, so I didn't get, made fun of because my mom couldn't afford to buy me like Levi's or Adidas or something. So I would augment that by working, just to shut kids up, because otherwise I got into fights, because if you made fun of me, I was going to punch you in the face. I was this little scrawny guy.
Ruthless.
Dude, I grew up in a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of like, hey man, let's talk this out. No, that didn't happen.
No.
It's like kids would come into class, like a new kid would come into class and just, he'd look at the pecking order of the bigger guys, and they'd look at me and, start giving me attitude and bump me as he walked by. And that happened. I remember 2 or 3 times where I just said, fuck it. I was like 9, 10, 11, and I'd just walk right up to him and punch him right in the face as hard as I could.
No fear.
Keep hitting him, and no one messed with me. How do you deal with that? That's crazy.
Yeah. Leave that kid alone. He's fucking mental, and he'll punch
you. Fucking mental, man. Leave that kid alone.
Yeah.
Not him. Leave him alone. And but you know how boys are. Boys can get in a fight and be best friends the next day.
Definitely.
Weird. Anyway. But
so then at this age, and then obviously you said that you can only imagine yourself being this musician and want to be a songwriter and stuff. Were your parents backing you? Because most people that then say to their parents they want to be in a band, they're like, come on, son, you need to get a proper job. Like, stop dreaming, wake up. Or were they like, you do what you want, son, we believe in you?
No one in the 70s did that.
No.
If people did, people tell me their parents did, and I'm like, you're fucking lying.
Yeah, you're a liar.
If you're not lying, you're like, your parents are smoking pot.
Yeah.
For one thing, I didn't have parents after the age of 5. I had a parent. I had my mom.
Right.
And we lived in the project. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to be a songwriter. I wanted to play drums. Once I remember my brother, like, we slept in the same bed. My big brother is 9 years older than me, and he was smoking pot and sniffing glue and stuff like that. But he would play on my dad's old, that he got after they split up. He got my dad's old RCA phonograph, right? And we would listen to Led Zeppelin like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. That's what I went to bed with when I was
That's
like
incredible.
seven.
Smelling his pot.
It's funny. I'm reading a book about Zeppelin right now. Another one, a newer one. I've read a bunch of them, but this one was called "When Giants Walk the Earth," and
Right.
it's interesting. And I remember when Led Zeppelin 2 came out, he took me. He had to watch me that day. For some reason, I wasn't in school. I think I was sick, so he took me to the local record store and got in line to buy that record, and then take it home. And in our bedroom, him and his hippie, long-haired stoner friends are all smoking pot and cigarettes and drinking beer in the middle of the day when my mom was at work, and listening to that. And I was sitting right next to the speakers when A Whole Lot of Love came on, and
Fucking
it
hell.
literally felt like shooting cocaine, which I did a lot later in life. And I
Yeah.
didn't then, but it was that same feeling of just that just to this day. I don't know of a better album opener,
No.
It just
It gets you instantly.
it's more punk rock than punk rock. And I would argue
Yeah.
that with any punk rock, because when that came out, there was nothing like it. Nothing. And yeah, I'm sorry. So I what was your question?
Oh yeah, your parents weren't for it. They were like, your mom at that point was not like, yes, son, go and be a guitarist. We have faith. We know that you'll do it. You were like, was your mom pushing for you to do like a certain education, or how was she kind of letting you find your way in life?
Well, my mom wasn't very educated, right? My mom was from the deep South, and she wanted me I always felt like she wanted me to aim low in life, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be disappointed, because she was disappointed. She had won a couple of scholarships to acting school from high school, and her dad wouldn't let her do it. And um, my marriage with my dad didn't work out really well. She was abused.
No.
Finally left him after 17 years. Um, so I have a lot of compassion for my mom, even though I used to be very frustrated with her, because she just kind of was trying to teach me to aim low, and I kept trying to overshoot it. And to
Yeah.
be honest with you, it's like I wanted to be a drummer after hearing John Bonham. I wanted to be a
Yeah.
drummer. But I lived in a housing project. I couldn't have drums. They're apartments basically. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't get a guitar till my brother died of an overdose when I was 12, and he had an acoustic guitar, and my mom offered to get me guitar lessons, and said if I stuck with them, she'd buy me an electric guitar. So I took 8 lessons, and then she bought me an electric guitar for $40 at a pawn shop,
Nice.
hawk shop basically, and a little $25 amp. And I took 8 more lessons, and that's all the lessons I've ever had. And then he taught me how to learn, like, ruin my records basically, going. And I learned Zeppelin 1, and I learned Aerosmith, and Jimi Hendrix, but Jimi Hendrix was hard, still hard.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're learning a guitar, you're becoming a songwriter, and you're not playing drums. Obviously, your mum's got you this amazing guitar. At
well,
what point?
it
Yeah.
kind of sucked. If I still had it, it'd be worth about $4,000. But
Wow.
Vox Phantom, which it's fancy used guitar, but vintage guitar. But no, not songwriting. I didn't start songwriting until I was in my early 20s, 21.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't start songwriting. I just wanted to be a guitar player. I wanted
I mean,
to.
it's a big step, isn't it, from someone that's buying, you've got this guitar you're playing, and then for another 10 years, you haven't took it upon yourself to want to be the front man, because that's a hell of a step, especially, being the center of the stage, where every time you get up on stage, it's you. There you are.
Yeah, it wasn't even about that. I mean, I'm sure there was ego involved in it, and I wanted to do it. It's just being a part of it and making music. That energy that was there. Like, I would go see friends of mine play in bands and garages, and I'm sure they sucked, but they were playing. They play Zeppelin or Bowie or something like that. And I'm a huge Bowie fan, and I just like it was like I want to do that.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do that since I was 6. I want to do it even more. I met friends when I went to a certain middle school when I was like grade 8 or 7, and him and his brother played, and I wanted to play, and I started, I was just not. I was taking lessons, but I wasn't good enough to play with them. Plus, I couldn't get over myself. I didn't know it then, but I had anxiety and depression and OCD and all sorts of things that I was taking a lot of drugs. Drugs and alcohol became a big thing at the age of 10. So all through my teens and most of my 20s, I was either doing drugs or drinking.
And do you think all that was like a plaster over it, so it would hide the?
I was self-medicating. Yeah. I was born with. I got raped when I was 8. There's a lot of stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And my dad leaving, not having contact with him very often. Just a sense of abandonment, and my brother dying when I was 12. All that stuff just weird. It was a hard life, and I think
that's a lot, isn't it, for the age of 12 to have gone through all that, when most people won't experience half of that in their whole life in 80 years. That's fucking, I don't even know how to even digest what you say sometimes, words, but it's like fucking hell. It's mental. It's like by the age of 12, most people are just starting to get their first job or play football in the park and stuff, and you've gone through all that. It's horrendous.
Yeah, but there's people who've had much worse time than me.
Yeah.
It's relative.
And you're still here now.
Well, and I think the catharsis of starting songwriting in my late teens, like I was writing lyrics, horrible lyrics, but I didn't sing them or like make them into songs with music. When I was 20, I remember being in a band, and I was playing in all sorts of bands, punk bands, country bands, all sorts of stuff, because I wanted to cover bands. I wanted to like get experience, right, and do different things. But I remember being in this punk band with this guy who was a singer who was really pretentious, and the bass player was my friend, and he brought me in the band, and I just got one rehearsal. I just got fed up with this guy saying, can you play something a little bit more linear? I'm like, linear? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, linear means, no, I know what linear means in a mathematical sense, but in a rock and roll sense, I have no idea, because that's not a word that musicians use. Linear.
Never.
He wanted me to palm mute like that. And I'm just like, I'm playing with him, and then finally I'm just like, you know what? I look at the bass player, and he looks at me, and he's like shaking his head, and I stop playing, and I just pack it up while they're still playing the song, and he's like, no, don't quit, we'll get another singer. I go, nah, don't want to do it anymore. I'm gonna teach myself how to sing. And I did. I took a year off bands, slept on my mom's couch when I was about 20, right before I turned 21, and smoked a lot of pot, and listened to a lot of singer-songwriter stuff like Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen, rock and roll songwriters, and Beatles, Stones, and taught myself how to play and sing those songs. And then I started writing songs. And it took me about a year before I started writing some good songs, but I started writing songs that I would play for friends, and that, even their girlfriends would go, hey, Art, did you write that? Yeah. That's pretty good. And I'm
nice.
Like, okay, if I can make someone else's girlfriend look at me,
yeah,
okay, So, so the singer-songwriting thing really, like with Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska, that was big for me. That was a big album. Neil Young was big. Joni Mitchell, John Prine, a lot of singer-songwriters. And at the same time, I was super into fucking heavy bands. Sabbath, Zeppelin, Cheap Trick, power pop type stuff, Aerosmith, and then Sex Pistols, X, a punk rock band from LA, one of my favorites, Ramones, all that stuff. I like, singer-songwriters and big guitars. And that's what Everclear is, really.
It is. I mean, I was a bit later to Everclear. I went back and bought all your other albums, but when I got so much of the Afterglow, I put on that opening track, and I thought, okay, this sounds like the Beach Boys. I was just there, like, the harmonies, the vocals, and everything. I was like, this is incredible, Brian Wilson. This is what I'm hearing. And then that guitar kicks in, and I was like, fuck, I've not heard anything like this. Like, this has got me instantly. When you talked about Led Zeppelin, that opener for me is up there with that for me, because it got me. Those guitar riff and that, I was just like, fuck, that's done something to me that all these other albums that I've got listening, like at the time, it was stuff like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, all these this was different. And then I was like, it got me. There was just something inside that was like, oh my God.
So you like the heavier, more metal?
I did growing up. I did when I was growing up. Now I've mellowed out.
When you're growing up, you're angry, and loud music makes you feel good.
Yeah, I was listening to those lyrics going, yeah, I hate my fucking dad and all this as well. And all this. But now I'm like, I listen to Jeff Buckley and I'm quite mellow and I can relax more and
have a cup of tea with your dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know.
So it does change.
That's good stuff, though. I mean, that's normal. That's normal stuff. The people that, when you think about bands that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s still doing that kind of music, you're like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you still angry? Yeah.
Me?
No, the bands, the bands. You think to yourself when you're listening, like, you're still writing those songs 30 years later. You must have got over it by now.
Well, I'm still working on a lot of the PTSD from back in the day, But I'm very present with it, and I'm conscious of it, and I'm very conscious not to let triggers. One thing I figured out over the last couple of years of like not letting things that happen to me, not being triggered by the rage and the anger and shame and pain and all that stuff, because I mean, it did its job. It helped me with my band, it helped me with my career, and it helped me with my music, but it doesn't help me in my life, being hair triggered, angry about stuff doesn't make you a good dad. It doesn't make you a good partner. So yeah, I'm very conscious of that, but I can turn it on and turn it off. I can get in contact with that person when I'm playing a song on stage, like You Make Me Feel Like a Whore or something like that.
Yeah.
I can connect with that rage. When I play, Father of Mine, I have to connect to that hurt 8-year-old boy. I have to connect with him. I can't, with lyrics like ours, mine, the Everclears, I can't phone it in. It'll show to the crowd.
It's so transparent. You have no idea. As a member of the audience, you can see straight through it. People don't realize. I've seen bands phone it in. I'm like, nah, that's fake.
Yeah, I can too.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm fucking totally connected. Like, we played a show in Southern Oregon, but it's our only show in Oregon. So a lot of Portland people, old school fans, came down for, and people from all over. And there was kids like in their late teens, early 20s, singing the lyrics. They weren't even fucking born when those albums came out.
Yeah.
No? And I'm just like, wow, how exciting. And we were on. Just no that we were fucking on. And the crowd just like crazy. 1,500 people jumping up and down for an hour and a half. It was awesome.
I know you've got to probably go now.
I have to go. I'm getting that look from my wife. I don't know.
No, that's fine. There's one question I need to ask you before we go off here. Every person that comes on the podcast chooses an outro song. Is there a song that you want to pick? It doesn't have to be one of your own, but on the spot, should we go with Led Zeppelin because you've talked about it? But every song has an outro.
Let's go with Whole Lot of Love.
Perfect. Thank you, dude.
All right, thank you. Bye.
So there it is. There's the first part of my interview with me and Art Alexakis. An amazing guy, so honest, but as you heard, the interview ended quite abruptly. Normal life and everyday life gets in the way of these things, and I respect that. So Art was good enough to come back on and finish this interview in style. So part 2 is waiting for you right now. So I'm not going to do my normal outro and tell you all about my social media channels. I'm encouraging you to go right to the next episode and hear the second part of this. I hope you've enjoyed the first part, and I'll leave you all now to hit that play button and get straight to the next part. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you all soon.